So we've discussed that Young Gun leaving has left a little bit of a ripple effect through the church. And Tom has really been working very hard to build up good graces to people who weren't fully Team Tom, you know. Um, but something that Tom has never been able to let go of and just release all control is the worship team. And in the fall of 2019, this comes back to bite him in the ass.
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
What's a place there shouldn't be abuse? Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims to.
Well, it ruins your soul.
If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
So we have the cast of characters, so to speak. Our worship team is being led. The quote unquote leaders of the worship team are Corey and Topanga. But Etheridge is kind of the lead singer. So, like, if you were just any, like, normal person.
She is the worship leader. She plays the guitar, yes. She sings, she leads worship on a Sunday morning. She's the worship leader.
And I think for most people, like, just sitting in the chairs on a Sunday morning, just normal church attenders, I think they all assumed she was the head of the whole ministry. But on paper, it was Corey and Topanga.
Well, and behind the scenes, it was Corey and Topanga.
And they did do a lot, yes.
Like, she just was in charge of where a song went while she was singing it or playing it. Like, that was, she had no, like, power over what the worship, she didn't do anything in the worship team but play guitar and sing.
And Corey and Topanga have butted heads with Tom over the years. And it all comes down to Tom could not relinquish control of this ministry. He would say repeatedly, I don't want to be the lead of this ministry. I can't be the lead of this ministry. I can either lead worship or I could preach on a Sunday. I can't do both. But for someone who said he couldn't lead, he sure demanded his way a whole lot. And I knew he was difficult, but it really wasn't until he put me in the sound booth and I had to go and sit at, like, practices that I realized just how awful he was to people. So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, because, like, in their own right, like, Corey and Topanga were great worship leader, like, ministry leaders, right? They
very
were
talented, very biblically sound, very loving,
talented, biblically sound, like, musically, like, knowledged, and, like, just phenomenal musician, like, the whole package. But Tom didn't like the fact that Corey was soft-spoken and gentle, much like Young Gun. And so if you remember, like, I struggled with the worship team from the moment that Etheridge came on scene. Yeah. Like, she took my spot on the worship team. And so it caused it caused some problems. And then I also had like Tom in my ear, in his opinion. But like he really was like, because he's the senior pastor and the worship leader answers to the senior, like the structure. So,
Yeah.
and with his vocalization of his opinion of Corey and Topanga as worship leaders, because he called them soft, whatever. But like, this is when I had gone to Tom and he was like, well, Young Gun is their pastor. You're going to have to talk to Young Gun. So
Yeah.
like that was a very pivotal moment. And now Young Gun's gone. And now, like you said, Tom is having to smooth over some of these riffs and it doesn't go well. Like he really like, it's horrible, but it would be like your goal was not to cry at worship practice because of something Tom said.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't realize like the stuff he would just like scream at people. Like, did you not even practice? Like, what is wrong? Like, how can you not hit a key? Like,
yeah. Like the level of insane perfectionism, but also then
someone who was
someone who actually can't
did not have the talent.
So can he play the guitar? Yes. Can he learn a song, play it, go through it? Like, yes. Can he do that? Yes. But when you hang out with musicians, there's like a level of musician where you're like, yeah, like, versus somebody who, like, I'm trying to think of the best way to like describe this. Like, I wouldn't call Tom a musician.
No.
Does he play the guitar? Does he play in a worship band? Yes. But when it comes to like, I don't know, he's at a very rudimentary level of music where Corey and Topanga have this ability to, like, they're playing a different level of sports,
Well, it's almost like what it reminds me of is like you can learn Spanish at school. So like you could say I speak Spanish, and like, can you hold a conversation? Yeah, probably. But if they go too fast, if they start using slang, if they don't use proper Spanish how you were taught, you're completely lost.
Yes, thank you. That is a very good.
And like that's almost how Tom was with music. Like, could he play? Absolutely. Could he keep up? Yep. But it got to a level if they started, we want to change a key or we want to change a tempo. And
did
like,
he understand all of that language? But when you're talking to a musician who's like, well, and then come over here, and he's like, and they going too fast. Like, exactly. Your illustration is exactly how it was. And so, and then nobody wants to tell him to sit down and shut up. So it's like,
well, and he was too prideful to be like, guys, I can't do that.
Right.
And so he would just get mad and basically like, well, do whatever you want, but, and so then you're stuck like, well, you're the pastor. Am I really going to piss you off and have you rant and rave and throw a hissy fit for the rest of the night?
Well, and talk crap about me behind my back to God knows who and everybody,
Yeah, exactly. Because so the way it went in the office, Mondays, Tom would come in and be mad about whatever he was mad about that didn't go correct on Sunday. Then he would make phone calls and talk to people. Then Tuesday, whatever between his rant phone calls and the people who would call him on Mondays upset about something, he would come in, but he would come in after Tuesday morning men's coffee. So all the men would meet for coffee. So he would listen to all the men bitch and moan over all this stuff, right? And it was usually what the women were mad about. They were griping to their husbands. The husbands were coming to men's coffee and being like, you got to do something about this. My wife is driving me crazy. She won't stop griping about this. And it's like, let's look at this logically for a minute. It's all retired old men who are coming to coffee on a Tuesday morning. All the men who are actually doing stuff are at work. It's all the retired old guys. So all their wives are old. And all the moms, all the stay-at-home moms are pissing off all the old ladies because we're not doing church the way they did church. And we're not moms the way they were moms. And we're not wives the way they were wives. So then they go home and gripe to their husbands. And then the husbands gripe to Tom. So then Tom would come in. So he's not only mad about whatever he was mad about on Monday, but now that's compounded. And he's mad about what the men were mad about. And we would get rants, hours-long rants on Tuesday mornings when we were supposed to. All the staff was supposed to meet on Tuesday mornings and pray for the church. Instead, he would rant, and then Pastor Ole Reliable would somehow be able to like, well, let's just pray real quick because I have to go do this or something. We would pray, and then people would be like, well, I got to get to work or I got to do this. And most mornings, Tom would pull someone into his office, sometimes me, sometimes Brandy, sometimes Lori. But he would pull one of us into his office and he would continue the rant. If he didn't feel like we gave him the validation he wanted, he would continue the rant. And so I got to the point, because I was in the office and then I was in the sound booth Tuesday night for worship practice, I knew if Tom was going to throw a fit at worship practice or not. Was he going to be go with the flow tonight? Or was he going to be coming in hot?
Right.
Based off of how Tuesday morning prayer went.
Right. Well, and like when I led worship on the worship team, because Tom would have Corey put together the songs and the mapping, and then he'd have to do it to find a version of the song that went that way.
Mm-hmm.
So like we were very limited in like any freestyling or anything. But so however it was put in the program, like this is the version of the song. You do it like this song. Like this is the mapping. And if the mapping was different, a couple songs we could do different. But that was Corey's job, was to make sure that we all knew like, hey, it's verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, whatever, right? And so I would do that. Like I was like, nope, this is what you told me. Like, I don't have an opinion. I don't need to be out here changing the word. I'm keeping Tom happy.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be the bad kid. Like I was, that was me. So I'm like,
nope,
it says I've memorized it this way. This is the way it's going to go. Like this is what we're going to do. However, that said, in the middle of worship on a Sunday morning, it doesn't mean that's going to be the case, because you're in the mood for something and this is where we're going. And it would just be funny because Corey would always be like, you don't have to tell me where you're going. Your body language changes. So like, he's like, if you're moving this way, you're doing this. If you go this way or whatever, he goes, I know you're going to go into the chorus next, or I know you're going to the bridge because you forgot there was a chorus there or whatever. He's like, you change how you stand in every song with every part of it. You move. Like I physically will move. And so I always thought that was funny. Well, when Etheridge came in, she is like, if I raise my hand up, I'm going to the chorus. If I put my hand out, or I'll do a number one, or like she had hand signals, like as so many people do. Like if you start watching for it, when you watch live music, you'll see them give cues to their band that they want to repeat something or do this. And so, everybody in that band could like do this stuff. It was very difficult for Tom to follow that. And so there was a lot of tension at this time, because you have so many people who can follow it. And she is actually leading the song. Like she has a guitar and she's singing. So she's playing the song. She's not singing along to the band, where like, I don't play the guitar. So I am at the mercy of the musicians. She is leading the song and they are supposed to follow her. And so this creates a lot of tension. And then she gets along with Corey and Topanga, and this whole dynamic is brewing. And then they were given this carte blanche from Pastor Young Gun. So here we are in this bubbling soup of.
I'm not sure exactly what happened. Maybe you can shed a little light on this. I was not there. So I would trade off because there was a guy who wanted to lead. I don't know. I guess I don't want to say that. There was a guy who was like, he can lead the sound booth.
Right.
I don't know if he wanted to lead. I don't know if it was something that like Young Gun was working with him as a leader. And so Tom felt like I want to work with him as a leader because Young Gun couldn't have taught him. I'm not really 100% sure. Anyway, it was his turn to be in the booth on a Tuesday, right? I didn't have to be there. So, something happened at practice and there was a giant fight. And Corey and Topanga were trying to be the peacemakers. Etheridge she was mad. And she wanted Tom to either admit he was wrong and like basically confess his sin. And she was like, you're not fit to preach on a Sunday if you're going to act like this at worship practice on a Tuesday. And there were other people in the band. So it was very much like no one was really 100% Team Tom, with the exception of Froggy.
So here's what I know. I don't know what the straw was that broke the camel's back. I was not at that worship practice. And if I was, I just don't remember. I probably wasn't because I had been beefing with that worship team. So, I mean, I was leading worship on Thursdays and I was leading worship for children's worship, but when I could, but I was not a part of the big, glorious, wonderful band of Sunday. Right. But what I do know is that all of the things that we have talked about up until this point, Schroeder, amazing piano player, till he tries to sing when he plays. Sorry, Schroeder, but like he was frustrated. He
can sing and he can play the piano.
Sing and he can play the piano.
Doing it at the same time is a little rough.
And he has a really good ear, yes. I mean, like he has all these qualities. And so he is good in his own right? And he has his own style and he has his own way of doing things. And then you have Etheridge, right? And she's a guitar player and she's a vocalist. And then you have Corey and Topanga and they're musicians. And then their son is on the worship team because he's a phenomenal guitar player. And, she plays the drums. They both play guitar. So like you have this full and complete band of people who are fully capable. They're all artists. They all have their own opinion of how things are supposed to be done. And then you have a narcissistic lead pastor, senior pastor, owner of it all, who also has written songs and has his way of doing things. And nobody wants to perform his songs. Like I absolutely refused. I was like, I refuse to sing them, like, because I can't make any like artistic movement within it. I can't change it in the moment or do anything. Like he would be like, that's not like, well, you know what? It was better this way.
Yeah.
That's why I did it. Right. And maybe the next time I'll sing it differently. It's a good song, like whatever. So they're dated and they're old.
Well, and remember, he bought a book, like 3 Easy Steps to Write a Worship Song.
True. And so
they're very like, I mean, like if you're just learning music, they're probably really great, like beginner level songs.
Right. And so now we have a worship team that has a lot of opinions of the songs that we should sing in service. And this is very like reminiscent of like hymns versus, contemporary music and the battles that would go on in churches like this. And it becomes this battle over like Tom songs versus these like Bethel songs versus Hillsong music, like these ballads and these long drawn out worship songs and this freestyle of worship. And this is what's popular right now. Like we've been to these worship team conferences and we've gone and there's songs that we've done and then Tom would be like, that's not a biblical song. You can't do it, right?
So the rants that we would hear about, we shouldn't even be singing Bethel. We shouldn't even be singing Hillsong. All it is, God, I am miserable and I don't feel you.
Yeah.
That's not biblical. God's always there.
And yeah, you see, we have our own music at Come As You Are. We have a CD and whatever, right? 12 years ago. So all of these little things, right, down to Young Gun and him encouraging the worship team to become who they are. And I think that was a threat to Tom because this is a hierarchy of Tom and everybody else. There is no structure of leadership. There is no structure of everybody. This is a one-man show, and he was threatened. And he was threatened by people who are more talented, threatened by people who have better ideas, threatened by people that can actually execute these things. He is not needed, but even to this day, like I had somebody just off the cuff. They were like, it's really weird. I went to this church on Sunday and there was like a 20-minute electric guitar solo. And I was like, was the pastor playing the guitar? Like, yep, sounds about right. So all of this stuff, because whatever happened at that worship practice on that particular Tuesday night was not what the issue really was.
No,
it
was just a huge giant,
is the straw that broke the camel's back. And this had been brewing and brewing and brewing and brewing and brewing. And then finally there's just this big, and was this the first time that Tom probably lost his cool on Etheridge? Probably, it only takes once, and then you either figure out you either leave the church or you toe the line. Like, I mean, that's
well, and there's three kinds of people. Tom will lose his cool on you, and he will absolutely, like, the mask will fall, and you get full on Tom rage. Some people suck it up and just say, well, he's an asshole, moving on. Right? I'm here for God, I'm not here for him. Some people take it uber personally and then work so hard to like get back in his good graces. And then there's some people who know he's wrong, but like just they take it so personally and then they demand justice. Yeah. It's like, you were wrong. That was hurtful. Apologize or I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And Tom's never going to apologize.
Right.
Because if you leave, all that does is feed into his narrative of they left. They were mad. I speak for the Lord, and sometimes I get zealous when I speak for the Lord, but hey, Paul was that way. And Peter was that way, and people said they were hot-headed, but they were disciples and they were apostles, and I am the pastor of this church, and God has given me this authority, and I will speak for God. And if you can't handle that, there's the door.
Yeah, there's something wrong with your faith.
There's a ton of churches out there who will tell you whatever version of Christianity you want to hear. But here at Come As You Are, I speak for God.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it all blew up.
Yeah. So it explodes on a Tuesday night. I am not there. I get a phone call at the office, and it's Etheridge wanting to talk to me. I believe it was a Thursday. And she invited me to lunch on that Thursday. So Etheridge and I went to lunch, and she cried over what Tom said to her. And I did my typical defend Tom with all the Kool-Aid of, he's Italian and sometimes he loses his cool, but just know it comes from a place of love. He only yells at the people he loves. He like
Yep.
yeah, like this. I sound like a battered wife. Like, oh, he only hit me because he loves me so much. Like that's like Tom only screams at you if he really truly loves you, and he feels comfortable around you. And you should be so thankful that Tom feels like you are a safe person, that he can be himself, and he doesn't always have to be Pastor Tom. He can just be Tom with you. And so you're getting Tom. You're not getting this refined Pastor Tom. You're getting Tom as the human. And humans make mistakes and humans have emotions. And so just like we expect Tom to forgive us, you need to have forgiveness to Tom. Like I fed her all the BS, right? And essentially, I felt like she was kind of a bitch when we left that lunch, but honestly, I think she walked away and was like, this chick has freaking lost her marbles. Like she is so deep in the Kool-Aid. Like what the hell is wrong with her? She is so brainwashed. Like I'm sure that's how she felt, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
That was, I want to say that was on a Thursday. Because she didn't come to church that night. She very rarely came on a Thursday night, but she would sometimes come and just sit in service, and she didn't come. And then more and more grumblings happen. And Sunday morning happens, and it is bad. Like the worship is bad. There's mistakes that are made. There is like everything is off. They have to start a song over. Like they start playing the song and then they're like, whoa, 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 we need to start all over again. Like it was bad, right? And so a meeting is called. Everyone go get lunch and then everyone come back. And we're going to have this worship team meeting and we're going to hash this all out. And it was Pastor Ole Reliable is going to lead the meeting. Tom is going to be there, not as Pastor Tom, but as Tom, a member of the worship team. And everyone who has anything to do with the worship team is there. So not only if you play on a Sunday, if you play on a Thursday, if you are in the sound booth, if you run the soundboard, if you are just the person who clicks through the slides, everyone who is a part of this worship team is asked to be at this meeting. Some people didn't go, but it's in the conference room, and Tom is nervous. I don't leave to go get lunch. Tom and I go in the conference room, the little sanctuary, the whatever the hell you want to call it, and we set up chairs in a big circle, and Tom is nervous. And he kind of plays it off as he's annoyed that people can't control their emotions enough, and now we have to have this meeting. But I could tell, like, he didn't know what was going to be said at this meeting. And, I mean, we have people, so for some reason, Becky's there. Like,
that was odd.
The one who, like, shares the gospel. And Tom asked her to be there. And then, like, her husband shows up.
As a church leader.
Yeah, her husband shows up as a church leader, but it was fine because
he's on the worship team.
Well, he shows up twice a year and sings one song. I'll Fly Away. Yeah. He sings twice a year. He sings I'll Fly Away because Tom likes the way his voice sounds when he sings it. And really, honestly, that's the only time that dude even came to church. Probably. Like
when I first started on the worship team, he was when I did sound, he was leading worship. He was more involved back then.
Oh yeah, but I mean, at this point in time, yeah.
And then it was a constant battle over like sound and monitors or whatever. Anyway, and then he kind of melted away.
Yeah,
but yes, he made a grand appearance to come back with his wife Becky.
And Ole Reliable,
yeah,
was going to lead this this because not only was Ole Reliable a pastor, but Ole Reliable played the saxophone occasionally.
Yeah.
So like if a worship song would, benefit from having a saxophone, Ole Reliable would play the sax.
Yep.
So we're going to have this meeting and we're just going to hash it all out. We're going to lay it all out. This is going to be biblical. We're going to confront each other. There's going to be witnesses there. We have church leadership there. Where it's going to be good, right? But it is very much...
Sure, what could go wrong?
Yeah. It is very much when people come in and sit down, you have those of us who feel like, because I was like, the sound booth people really don't need to be involved in this. Well, yeah, because you're the worship team. Well, no, we're really not. Like, I don't care what songs you play. I don't care if you play them in A minor or G or whatever the hell. I don't care. I don't care if you sing the chorus 14,000 times. My job is to make sure someone is there to push the buttons and someone is there to run the soundboard and that what is on the slides is correct. That's all. And it was, nope, everyone on your team needs to come. So, I mean, you had people like Lori who, would come on a Thursday night and click through the slides and put up the verses on the screen and, the words during worship and stuff. And, you had Ole Reliable's wife who, kind of did the same thing. She was a Thursday night person. We had one gal who was the Sunday morning lady who did the slides. She was there. And then a couple of the people who ran the sound booth. And we all kind of sat on one side together. We were the booth side, right? And so the Sunday morning slide lady sat on my right. Then it was me. Then to my left was a lady who she had just started getting into wanting to do slides and wanting to run the cameras and stuff. And she was very much an Etheridge groupie. Like she had no musical talent and she really didn't have a desire to be on stage, but she wanted so bad to be a part of this group and to be Etheridge's friend, right? So she sat and then it was Etheridge. And then you kind of had as the circle went around, you had these people who were Team Etheridge. And then you had Becky and her husband and Pastor Ole Reliable. And then you had you, Froggy, and Tom.
Yeah.
And this meeting it was doted as though we need to have a conversation about the leadership of the worship team.
Yeah.
So, Ole Reliable has been the quote unquote pastor. And this has happened off and on. And really, honestly, for the last 10 years at the church, it's, well, Ole Reliable's leading worship. Well, Tom's leading worship. Well, not leading, but the pastor who oversees it, because they would divvy up ministries, right? And so when Young Gun was here, it was Ole Reliable oversaw the worship team, but Young Gun would be Corey and Topanga and Etheridge's pastor. Personally, for personal matters. So we have all these people there, but Corey and Topanga are not there because whatever happened at that Tuesday practice was this blow up was done and they were done.
They were done.
And yeah, it was.
They stepped down from leading the worship team, whatever it was. I don't remember. I mean, I know it was big.
Yeah.
At this point, I remember it being big, and I remember a lot of it was a constant battle over this, okay, because we talked about how Froggy was Tom's henchman in the whole Good Friday thing, and you just want to you just want to be worshiping. We need to get through the worship, play the music, right? That we don't have time to sit at the foot of the cross. We got to get up and celebrate, the resurrection, And so if I were to I feel like it was all a culmination of so much, but if I were to pinpoint something happened that had to do with them getting called out, be over wanting to do these long drawn out songs and always be in this weepy cry place and whatever. And all I know is they stepped down. They said, we're not leading worship anymore.
Yeah.
We're done. So we have this big meeting, and part of this big meeting is we have to figure out who's going to lead the worship team.
It's not only, it's Sunday went so terribly.
Oh my gosh, no, that was like the main focus of it because Etheridge wanted to be the new worship leader.
Yeah.
And so then she had her team show up for her and be like we were going to vote and she was going to win.
But that's not how it was presented to everyone. It was very much presented like,
this is why I totally just forgot about it until right now.
It was very much presented as, we have a rift in the ministry and we need to fix this. And so everyone fully thought Corey and Topanga were going to come to this meeting and we were going to fix everything. And they didn't come.
No. But I do remember going, and that's why I went to this meeting, was because this became, on the way it was presented to me, like my understanding of going to this meeting was, and I think that's why Etheridge had lunch with you. I feel like she was going around, do you want me to be the next worship leader? I feel it was like campaigning going on before this meeting.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even, it wasn't even about the meeting. But they stepped down and this campaigning for who was going to be the leaders of the worship team started happening. Then we had to have this meeting. And so it all kind of got meshed together. I think is probably a better way to say how it went down. Yeah. But this meeting got...
No. So all of that, that shows you what a cluster F this whole thing was.
Yeah.
It was a giant shit show. And we go into this meeting... And it is very much like Pastor Ole Reliable is like, well, Etheridge, why do you think we're having this meeting? Yeah. And she goes off and tears Tom down. 100% goes off on him. She's crying. Other people are crying just because she's, and me and the Sunday slide chick are sitting next to each other and we're like, oh crap. She's
it got real quick.
Oh man.
You may have the floor. She went for blood.
And other people would kind of interject or whatever. And Tom sits there and he takes it.
And then she said something about his music.
Yep. Then she brings up his music.
To which Melissa jumped to the defense. But not good enough, I guess.
And that was all Tom could take.
And that was it.
So Tom gets up and walks out of the room. You and Froggy get up.
Well, Froggy gets up. I can't be here. I have to defend my dad.
Well, and
then Froggy, I look around and I'm like, well, I guess I gotta go too. Sorry.
Well, Froggy, Tom's gone. He's down the hallway. He's exited the building. Froggy is standing at the door, screaming about how this is not right and you should respect his authority. He's the pastor and all this stuff. And you were I just remember you trying to shove him out the door.
Yeah. There you go.
Tom is gone. Froggy's
up. Just go.
Froggy's causing a scene and you're trying to push him out the door. So you guys finally leave and we could hear him yelling all the way down the hallway. We could hear him until you guys leave the building.
Yeah.
Yelling.
Yes.
So before we go any farther in what happened in the meeting, what happened when you guys left?
I think we went over to the office. And then there was the banter back and forth of well, that was stupid and this is this and that. Okay, let's go home. And I'm sure that conversation continued of at the house,
Yeah.
Of just you have your after meeting powwow. What can you believe? Like, well, I told you, I said this, you know.
Yeah.
And like, why would they say that? And they're just thinking, you know, I mean, it's just a recap of that was it. That was it. Just a recap and get everybody back to on kilter and
Yeah.
go about your day.
So, you guys left,
Yeah.
and Etheridge goes, and that's pastor behavior? And just like you tried to defend Tom, I look at her with my condescending self and say, he didn't yell at you. Him getting up and leaving without saying anything is Tom showing how much he loves you and how much he cares for you. Because he was clearly angry and he was clearly in his flesh, and he had self-control enough to get up and walk out the door. And so did Froggy lose it? Yes. But Froggy's not the pastor. Tom is the pastor, and Tom just showed this entire room how much he loves us. And I could hear some of their eyes roll like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. But we did decide prior to the storming out, we kind of made a decision, that Old Reliable would step back up as the pastoral leader.
So it was Pastor Ole Reliable would be the pastoral leader. But then it was, who do we feel could do this job? And Etheridge says, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And someone says, I think Schroeder can do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, Schroeder, what do you think? And he's like, whatever you guys decide is best.
Yeah.
Is kind of how his...
Yeah, I was there for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That all happened before we stormed out. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I didn't storm out, but before they stormed out.
You guys leave. And so Becky's husband pipes up and he's like, well, we have Schroeder and we have Etheridge. Does anyone else want to throw their hat in the ring? And no one said anything. And so he says, well, Ole Reliable, I don't think it's appropriate that all these people are here for this decision. Who do you think should stay and make this decision? So Ole Reliable says, Becky and your husband, me, and Amanda will stay and make this decision. And when he said that, I was like, why the hell do I have to make the decision? Like, what? And I kind of gave him a look like, no. Like, and I kind of shook my head like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, whoever is the head of the worship team, your team is going to have to work very closely with them. So you should have a say in who this person is. So he was like, Etheridge, why do you feel like what do you bring to the table? Schroeder, what do you feel like you could bring to the table? Etheridge was very much like, I should be the leader because of X, Y, and Z. I can do A, B, C. Like, laid it all out. You could tell she had prepared something to say. Schroeder was like, I don't know. Like, I could do this and this. Like,
Whatever, man.
Whatever, man.
So him too.
And so, like, I mean, I can do it, but I mean, it's you guys' decision. Whoever you think is best, So Ole Reliable dismisses everyone. So it's just the four of us in the room. And when everyone is leaving, the girl who was like Etheridge's groupie comes up to me, like 3 inches from my face, and she has tears running down her face because through Etheridge's emboldened speech, she just sat there and bawled the whole time. This girl did. And so she comes up to me and she grabs me by the shoulders and she's bawling and she's like right in my face and she's like, speak for us. Speak for us. Don't let them bury us. And I'm like, okay.
Like, this is a sign that people's lives are too intertwined into this.
A girl who shows up every few weeks and pushes a button to advance slides is bawling hysterically over who is going to be the next leader of a ministry. She's not even like, she's in the sound booth ministry. She's not on the worship ministry. Like,
It's just an example of what's wrong in the world today when it comes to churches.
yeah, like it was
far
so
too much investment.
it was so wild. So everyone leaves. And I remember thinking, because it wasn't that long after you guys left. And I remember thinking, like, oh dear God, let them not be like sitting in the lobby.
No.
And all these people walk out and Tom's just sitting there. Like,
well, we weren't there very long. Like, it was like, meet at the office, blah, 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 get in the cars and go.
Yeah. And I want to say it was like maybe 10 minutes after you guys left that Ole Reliable dismissed everyone.
Yeah.
And so it's just the four of us in this room. And we go back and forth on the pros and cons of everyone. Something is said. I think it was Becky's husband said something that Etheridge's heart seemed to be very prideful. And then I pipe up with my plethora of knowledge of everything I know about every person in the church and all of this BS information I've had to been collecting on people after we came back from Georgia. And I say, Etheridge has not done anything. She's not done 101 or 201. She's not she's signed up for Master Life, but she didn't complete it.
Schroeder was in Master Life, right?
No, not at that point.
Not yet.
Not at that. We made him take it.
Yeah, no, I remember that. No, everybody had to make sure that was another.
Yep.
This meeting led to another. Hey, Melissa, you don't have any boxes checked. Yes, I do.
Yeah. So, but Schroeder had taken 101, 201, and then I think we were offering 301 in a couple weeks, and he was signed up for it or something like that.
Yeah.
And so he had done more of the steps. He had checked more boxes, and it was decided that he had more humility.
Yeah.
And was more invested in the church as a church family and not just a stage to sing on. And we named Schroeder the leader.
Yeah.
And Etheridge left the church.
Yep. And Melissa got to be a worship leader again.
And Melissa got to sing again. Yeah. And Corey and Topanga stayed at the church. They would come and attend. But they were no longer on the worship team. So there's kind of some fallout from that, right? But in all honesty, Etheridge, aside from the worship team, she really wasn't connected with anyone else. So, I mean, people were sad that she wasn't there singing because they liked her voice. But
that's all she did.
She was very, very quickly forgotten.
Yeah, but that's all she did. She was just there. She played the guitar and she sang. And was she good? I mean, I'm not trying to be all competitive or competition or, bitter about the fact that, I didn't win that battle, but whatever. But at the end of the day, I think I'm more, it's not about vocal talent or the ability to play the guitar or whatever, whatever. And at the time, was I probably a little bent on that? Yes. But the fact that I had to jump through hoops and that I had to be perfect to be on that stage, and she was far from any of that and didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And then could also be a total train wreck in her life and still lead worship. And that was fine, but I couldn't do that. I think that's more of where that disdain that you hear in my voice is more of that than it is about whatever. There's a million people that sing better than I do. I don't care.
Yeah.
It was more about the fact that I had to be perfect and she didn't.
And like you said, this led into the worship team having another meeting of what have you completed? What boxes have you checked and not checked? Schroeder hadn't done Master Life. And so, well, we got to start a Master Life group. So, of course, Amanda and Schroeder and all the office people, instead of doing prayer on Tuesday mornings, we all do Master Life together.
Yeah.
We only
and Froggy
did book.
joins the worship team.
Yeah, we only did book 1. We didn't have to continue. It was like, well, we all did book 1, so at least Schroeder got the Disciples Cross. And then the next time we offer, 2, 3, 4, the rest of the books. But we all did book 1 together.
Yeah.
And so the girl who is Etheridge's groupie is also, she was a part of Mom's group, and she's besties with Beer Ministry Wife. She is not happy. So she already wasn't a fan of me because of Mom's group, because of Beer Ministry stuff, because of all of that stuff that's gone on. Now she's really mad because she begged me to defend them, and I was part of the decision that picked Schroeder. And her idol has left the church, and I have ruined her life. So she starts complaining to Beer Ministry. So Beer Ministry husband starts coming into Tom and having meetings with Tom and complaining about me, complaining about why I have to know all this information about all these people. And instead of Tom saying, because I told her to, Tom says, I'll talk to her. Just kind of like pushes them off, I'll talk to her. There's other things that go on. There's, youth ministry stuff that had happened over the summer, which we're going to talk about that a little bit more over on our Patreon. So there's some youth ministry stuff that had gone down over the summer that they're not happy about. And there's, all of these multiple things. And so he is basically coming to Tom on a weekly basis, complaining to Tom, right? So Tom calls a meeting. He asks me, I need a list of every couple in the church who are under the age of 40 or have children in children's ministry. I need their names and their emails because I'm going to send an email. So he emails everyone. But conveniently, there's some people who are left off this list because you're in 40 Days of Community with the retired people. You can't be considered a young family.
We're not a young couple.
He's trying to get you to quit your job and see how glorious retired married life can be at Come As You Are. So you don't get invited, even though you meet this criteria.
Right.
There's other people who are conveniently left off this list for similar reasons, right? We need to make them older than they are. But we have this email sent to all of us, and it is basically, we know Young Gun was the young family pastor, and him leaving has left a hole in our leadership, but we support him 100% because God has called him to missionary work and, that whole BS story that we're feeding people that, no, him and Tom didn't have a disagreement. There wasn't a fight. God called him elsewhere. And so God has revealed to Tom that we need to have another young pastor come in, and that there were things that were beneficial having 2 pastors of 2 different generations. Mm-hmm. And so this is the next pastor. This pastor will be the one who will take over from Tom. So it only makes sense that the young families who are going to grow and become the leaders of this church when this pastor becomes the head pastor, it only makes sense that we should have a say in who this person is. So in this email, he outlines what we're supposed to bring. We're supposed to bring a list. What do you look for in a pastor? What were Pastor Younggun's pros? What were his cons? Like, what are Tom's pros and Ole Reliable's pros? What are things that we feel are attributes of like that we should be looking for? So very much like the stupid crap that they make teenage girls in purity culture do. Like, make a list of what all the things that you would want in your future husband. And we are going to use that list. And then if anyone lines up line for line, we know that is who God has for you. And you are not going to settle for anything less than the person God has for you. We essentially do the same thing with a pastor. We are asked to do the same thing with a pastor. Come with a list. Together, you young families, we are going to do this to the point where Tom even has me make slides. We get him an easel with like a big, like those giant notepads and markers, and he's going to make a list. We're going to brainstorm this, and we are going to come up with this, like, what are we looking for in our future pastor? I help Tom set up for this meeting. Then I go home. I get my husband. We come back. And in that half hour, we show up. And Tom said, well, originally, this is what we were going to do. But you know what God showed me? I'm the pastor that he has for this church. And I am the one he has called. And so, what do I need to do as your pastor to come alongside you young families better? I do not know in that 30 minutes what flipped in his head, but he went from being full on, we are going to make a list and we are going to come up with what we're going to do when we start looking for our next pastor. Something in his head flipped. And it was 100%. We don't need anyone. God showed me I am who he called to lead this church. And I still feel young. I don't feel ready to retire. I'm nowhere near retirement. So what do I need to do to come alongside of you?
That's so interesting. Because you know how Brandy was like Team Froggy at this point, right? And we weren't invited to the young couples meeting. Well, that information got given to Froggy, and he flipped out about not being included. And him and Tom got into a full-fledged argument. Not that day, and I really think it was after the meeting, but like they got into an all-out screaming match with each other about why Froggy wasn't included in this young couples who's going to be the next pastor. And so the fact that that flipped, because I'm pretty sure that their argument happened after, because was Brandy at that meeting?
Brandy and Jason were invited, but Brandy went in, I don't think Brandy sat in the meeting. I think she had to go in the gym and do childcare.
Yeah, I don't think she knew that either, because she's the one who fueled the, like, she threw the gasoline on the fire of like, why weren't you guys invited? And she is a big proponent for justice. So she was like, that is unjust.
It needs to be fair.
Froggy is supposed to be the next pastor. Like, she was on Team Froggy. And so she was throwing the gasoline on the fire. So I don't think she knew what happened in that meeting, because I'm pretty sure this argument happened after this meeting, and it was a doozy.
Yes. And so this meeting where we show up and we expect to have this big long meeting.
Because was
It
there a lot of
lasts-
people there?
No. Like, I mean, we invite, I bet there was probably 20 couples that were on the list that I gave Tom, and like 7 showed up.
Yeah. Because this idea of the next pastor became a torch that got lit from this meeting forward.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
so the fact that he flipped in the meeting of like that didn't become widespread because a lot of people knew about this. We're going to have a family pastor.
Yeah.
And that idea, that concept that we were looking for somebody to be the family pastor became well known and became a focus, I would say, from my perspective.
If I remember correctly, I think it was like on a Sunday afternoon. And I'm pretty sure Tom even said it from stage on a Sunday. Like, hey, if you consider yourself a young family, like if you have kids in our children's ministry, or if you're a couple under the age of 40, like we want you at this meeting.
Yeah.
And so this meeting.
Yeah, because that's just another thing to like button on your board of like this concept that we are going to have another pastor, and this family pastor is like,
we're looking for a family pastor. We are looking for Tom's successor. Yes.
Successor. Yeah, that becomes very prevalent
because Ole Reliable is still a pastor, but Ole Reliable, Tom views him as his peer, not his successor.
Yeah.
And Ole Reliable is just not a preaching pastor.
No.
He's a care pastor. Right. So we show up and we think this meeting is going to take like an hour, maybe 2 hours. Like we're ready to hash this out. Like people come with notes. Like one chick shows up with a binder. Like, I mean, we are millennials and we are here to like plan this shit out.
Yeah. And I feel like there were murmurs, you know, after this too, from people who were like, felt, yeah, and they've probably expressed this before or whatever. Like, I feel like this came in a few different directions of like people who felt like they were called to be a pastor, but not a family pastor. Like, so it was like really off-putting. There were a lot of people that were really off-put by like, I have to be the children's ministry pastor. Like, I feel like it was really, there was some of that contention going on too. But how funny. Like, that's weird. I never knew that.
Yeah. And so
I
like,
just remember the phone call.
No, it completely flipped. And so we're sitting there and he's like, well, like what needs to go better? Like, this is your church. What needs to go better? If you're not happy with me as a pastor, what can I change? And so then it almost like he started off like God has showed me, but then he became very like, well, you say I'm doing stuff wrong. What do you think I'm doing wrong?
Right. He's not the type of person that you're going to sit there and be like, well, you're doing this, this, and this wrong. Because that never goes well.
Half the people shut down.
Yes.
And just like stare at the floor and don't say anything. And so then he starts like, well, beer ministry guy, you're not happy. And, how many of you serve in more than 2 ministries? And so like some of us raised our hands. Of course, beer ministry and his wife don't. So then Tom calls them out in front of the whole room.
Did he do that whole thing just to put him in his place? Like, that sounds like a Tom thing.
Part of it, I think. And so the beer ministries guy again comes back, and this is the first time I've heard it, but the way Tom reacted when this guy said this in this meeting, I was like, he's been freaking telling Tom this whole time. This is not new information to Tom. So he starts complaining about how only I know information about people. No one else. So you want me to talk? You want me to meet new families? How am I supposed to know this information? Like, what are we supposed to do? And I'm like, Tom's like, well, join the greeting team, stand in the lobby, meet people. And he's like, well, how are we supposed to know who people are? And everyone's like, oh, did you meet the new people like Timmy and Sally? And we're like, we don't even know who they are. Okay. And so Tom's like, so get involved. And Tom's like, Amanda, you're a part of this team. You're a part of this. Like, what do you guys do? And so I start like, yeah, we talk to each other. And, like, hey, I met this person and this is, what they said. So then we help each other remember, and like Tom will come up to me and be like, that guy, who is that? And I'll be like, oh, that's so and so, or, and we help each other remember. And the beer ministry guy goes, well, can't we like take people's pictures or something and then send out a weekly email of like, here's the pictures of the new people and all of the information that we learned about them? And so I go, that's freaking creepy. We're not doing that.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Like,
I'll just gather the information, but I can't put it out there on blast because that's creepy.
Yeah. Like, yeah, let's just sit with that for a second. I had notepads of people that we were sharing as a team with notes that if anyone really looked at the notes of what we were writing about them, like short Asian lady, like, I mean, very, very, like wrong, just insensitive, wrong, hurtful notes about people's appearances in order to remember who they were so that we could love bomb the shit out of these people and get them involved in our cult but I drew the line at taking their picture like
and putting them on blast so everybody could know who they are. No, do your own work, show up.
Yeah,
you show up and collect your own information, buddy. Say hi to somebody every once in a while.
You want to be a stalker, like show up and join the stalker team. Like, we're not going to just give you information. So essentially then Tom goes off on this tangent about, well, if you were involved like Amanda's involved, if you were involved like and like he started naming the few people in that room who were involved in multiple things, and he's like, that's it, that's what we need to do. I'm not listening to anyone anymore unless you're involved. You need to tithe and you need to be involved in ministry. And if you're not doing those two things, you don't care enough about our church family to have an opinion. I'm done listening to people. And that was the end of the meeting.
Wow. Like weird, but like that's true to form. Like that is.
Yeah.
Wow.
But do you know who did not get an invite to that meeting?
Wow.
Barry and Miss America.
Yeah.
They weren't invited.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
It's very interesting.
So, what did this fight entail?
A lot of screaming and yelling at each other. Two hot-headed Italian men going
zealous for the Lord.
Zealous for their own fruit or gain. Yeah, like that was it. It was like,
so like Froggy was just like, why wasn't I considered? Why wasn't I invited? Did Tom say like that's not even what he did?
No, because Tom is like takes every opportunity to be like, well, you're not doing this and you're not doing this and you need to do this and you need to do that. And
because we're not going to make our child feel better.
Like, I try, and every time I try, like, woe is me. Something, everything's against me, and I've been doing this, and I've been doing this, and F my life. Like, I can't do anything right, and you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. And they just yelled and screamed at each other for like 45 minutes. And, maybe not even that long, but.
Yeah. So, Froggy's man, Beer Ministry and all the families who are members of Beer Ministry are mad. They're big mad now. And this leads into the holiday season.
Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.